we just become ever more irrelevant and just become sidelined and just what we are, which is a little island on the outskirts of Europe that living off past glories.
Mr. Anderson, for years you spilled the city's secrets concerning the referendum. What is going on behind the scenes right now?
It's essentially the Tory party have got these deep divisions, and to some extent, in order to win the last election, David Cameron had to give this idea of having a referendum so that the UKIP party would not do very well, and it would also mean that his party was more unified. And this whole country now is facing what could be, I think, a really disastrous move, principally because of political reasons that have got nothing to do with the benefit that these things will bring to the country. And what both sides are doing, but particularly the Brexit side, they are spreading misinformation in order to confuse everyone and essentially lying as well.
When you take a look in the newspapers, how would you describe the British mood right now?
Well, it's very difficult to say. I'd say it's split down certain lines. So if you're young, then you are pro staying in Europe. If you are old, you are more likely to be thinking about getting out of Europe. And this is based principally on a nostalgic belief about how things used to be. It's got definite undercurrents of xenophobia and sort of racism, all these, Poles and Romanians coming in, taking our jobs and so forth. And if you live in the country, ironically enough, you're more likely to be anti-immigration than actually if you are in those areas that are affected by immigration, like London. So it's kind of getting quite ugly. It's impassioned, but the latest poll that I just saw puts the people who want to leave up 6% above those who want to stay. And because those who want to stay are more likely to be young people and less impassioned, it's actually a bit worrying because they're probably the ones who won't register and won't get to vote. So there's a reasonable chance in about a week's time we're going to leave Europe, which is so worrying in a lot of ways.
You said so before that polls show increasing support for Brexit, but what is your personal opinion?
I want to stay in. I think, economically speaking, even those who support Brexit have to just register the fact that we're going to face lots of years, 4 or 5 years maybe, of economic uncertainty, of economic decline relative to where we would be otherwise. And that can have a knock-on impact. I think even those people who support Brexit recognise the fact that this could be the case. And I actually believe that a lot of the argument now is just simply about immigration. And it's basically thinly veiled Little England racism and xenophobia. And, I'm a big believer in people coming together and preventing themselves from having divisions, the sort of things that actually cause violence and hatred and the things we'd like to try and remove from society. So I like the European Union. And I actually think economically it would be a disaster for us for at least 4 or 5 years.
It seems that Rupert Murdoch doesn't like the EU as much as you do. So the Sun newspapers endorses Brexit. Would you think that Rupert Murdoch is maybe the biggest enemy right now for the European Union because he has a lot of influence?
Yeah, he's always sided with essentially in a kind of right-wing, semi-bigoted way of approaching things. When Neil Kinnock lost the election in 1992, the Sun's headline the day after was, "It was the Sun what won it." They're always generally fighting for the kind of somewhat retrograde, bigoted approach to politics, and this is no surprise that he's come out in favour of Brexit. It's based on this idea that before the European Union, England was a great nation that was truly English, white and wonderful, and we all lived in wonderful existence, and that it's all these nasty immigrants who've ruined everything. It's a bit fascist.
As an insider, I would like to ask you, how would you describe the mood in the investment banking business?
They're horrified. They know that the City of London reputation and its status is potentially going to come under fire if we're not part of the European Union. And also, the fact is that I think the EU will really punish Britain if we leave, because they want to make an example, as the French say, pour encourager les autres. They have to make sure that everyone realizes that if you leave, they're going to make things difficult for you with tariffs and all these other things. So one of the ways they can really hurt us in one of the few true industries we have, one of the few brilliant exports that we have, is to hurt the City of London. And of course, Paris and Frankfurt and Milan and, Madrid, they're all biting at our heels, wondering why they can't get a greater share of the financial services business. So that's definitely one of the things they'll hit. So all my ex-colleagues and clients in the city are really worried about this. And I can tell you now about 95% of them will be voting to stay in if they want to keep their jobs.
But can you understand your colleagues when they are just thinking about right now moving to Paris or to Frankfurt?
Oh, in terms of if there was a Brexit, they'd move there. In a theory, capital is very mobile. So, if the hedge fund wants to set up in Paris, or an investment bank wants to move to Frankfurt, or whatever, it's easy to do. In reality, we have the infrastructure in the City of London, and we have a massive reputation, and it's all the legal framework and everything that's there is pro the city working, and it's easier said than done to just get up and leave if you've got a family. But I suspect things aren't quite as permanent as everyone thinks. If we leave, then the City of London will take a big hit.
So maybe you can tell us a bit more about the effect on the City of London in case of Brexit.
Well, there have been some estimates about how many job losses there'll be. I think sort of 15-20% in the first few years, this kind of thing. And it's, we're already having lots of issues in the City of London. So bonuses are actually limited now to only twice what your salary is. And there's huge amounts of regulations and compliance after the 2008 financial crisis. So this could be seen as another nail in the coffin. So I actually believe that the City of London is fairly solid, but this will just chip away once again. And there are lots of countries' capital cities who want to take that business.
What is your greatest fear concerning Brexit, from a personal point of view?
I think it would be twofold. It would be economically speaking. I think we would suffer quite dramatically. If there's one thing that working in the city taught me, it's that the city and finance and investors hate uncertainty. So if you're a Honda factory thinking of whether you should build a factory in a Honda company, and you're thinking of building a factory in Leeds or something, you're just not going to do that. And you'll think, well, the safer option is to do it, somewhere in France or Germany. And so the economic concerns is my principal one. The second one is that we just become ever more irrelevant and just become sidelined and just what we are, which is a little island on the outskirts of Europe that living off past glories.
In case of Brexit, how would your life change, possibly?
Well, I suppose financially I'll be hit in one way or another. I suppose it might make moving over to Europe in any ways a slightly more complicated affair, should I want to do that. I suspect the main way it would be is economically. It's just, things will be there'll be less money around, and that will affect a writer like me, someone trying to raise money for a film. Who's gonna have enough money in their pockets to give me money for my film? So it would personally affect me in a negative way. Well, the bookies are still suggesting that the stay campaign will work, and we won't leave. And I think, on balance, if you put a gun to my head, I think we'll just win by a marginal amount, because people, when they actually get to the ballot boxes, tend to favour the status quo. And so it's a bit like the Scottish referendum, where about this time, a week before it, everyone was suddenly saying, we are going to actually, Scotland is going to leave the United Kingdom. Actually, when push comes to the shove, people take the more conservative status quo option. And so I'm not just hoping we'll win, I think we'll win as well.